Andrew, as you very well know, it's just that peace of mind. It's that sense of we trust what you believe in, and we trust your research that you do. So I think a lot of us look to you for.
Well, I think trust is earned. I started my company 38 years ago. I've been on television now for almost 27 years. So trust is earned, and I always make sure that, as I've said before, we've made some products that weren't well reviewed. I make those products go away until we make a better product.
Right.
So my commitment is always to make the best product of its kind, and that's what I think. If you do that for enough years, you're lucky enough to acquire some trust, and I think that's what we've been able to do.
Well, with that in mind, on to another one that I've never ever been on television before with Andrew. Fruitful antioxidants. Andrew, this the clue's in the name, I suppose.
We'll do the fruitful antioxidants, and then we have our cruciferous vegetable extracts. Our fruitful antioxidants, as you can see here, it's a lot of companies do these fruity kitchen sink products, as they call them, and they're just a bunch of dried fruit in a capsule, right, or dried veggies. Ours is not dried fruit. Every single one of the fruits is a standardized extract, which, to give you an idea, a standardized extract, you could buy dried blueberries as a manufacturer for a few dollars a kilo. Our standardized extract of blueberry costs almost $1,000 a kilo.
Wow.
So there's a difference in orders of magnitude from the cost of these standardized extracts. We have acai berry, bilberry extract, black elder extract, the anthocyanins, great for night vision, cranberry extracts, relatively small levels of each of these, but it's 100% pure product. So the capsule is just a wide variety, a comprehensive variety of fruit extracts. Apple extracts, blackberry, strawberry, resveratrol, wow, raspberry, grapeseed, chokeberry, cherry, blueberry, pomegranate, grapeskin, cranberry, black elder, on up the list. So all standardized extracts. To give an idea of the power of an extract, this is a small capsule, obviously, and this is about, I just broke the capsule, I'll put the whole capsule in. This is about, I'd say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 or 3 liters of water, maybe more.
Sure.
And just one capsule, and you get an idea if we just stir it around. Just that one capsule.
Gosh.
After a while, that one capsule will get literally, it looks black, but it's actually just dark, dark purple. So that's almost a gallon of water there, and that gallon of water, one capsule. But that shows you the anthocyanins in these berries, when you extract them. So if you just tried to put some dried fruit powder in there, it would maybe get a little bit pink. It wouldn't turn into that. So that's the power of extracts, where you standardized each ingredient for its most important protective compound. So what you have is you have standardized ingredients, and here it's more than a dozen different berries, each one of them with their own protective compounds, each one standardized, and that capsule is 100% active ingredients. We're in the desert in Nevada here, so that capsule doesn't have any lubricants, fillers, flowing agents. It is just filled with the beneficial ingredients you want. So that is a real standardized extract fruit salad product, not your typical products that are just some dried fruit that basically cost almost nothing. These are all very costly standardized extracts.
And Andrew, is this one a day?
I take one a day of this. I take one a day of the cruciferous extracts as well.
Okay.
I also, for me, it kind of serves to remind me to eat that way as well. So when you're looking at these products, it's important to note it's not enough for someone to say a custom blend of fruits or vegetables. You deserve to know the standardization of each and every one of them. And if you're not being told that, you can bet it's not good. Because if someone is investing in those like me, you kind of want to shout it from the rooftops. You want to tell everyone this is a standardized extract of bilberry, standardized to 25% anthocyanins, because that costs $500, $600, $700 a kilogram. A kilogram is only 2 pounds. So it's something that any company that's not disclosing it, it's probably not good news that they're not disclosing.
If you'd like to order yours, again, only a few moments
here.
And
look at how that one capsule.
That is amazing. From that teeny tiny capsule.
It's pretty wild.
It's unbelievable. So there it is. There's your chance to try it. And obviously, it is a new year coming up. And Andrew, we always kind of get that feeling. This year, I'm going to be better. This year, I'm going to make healthier choices. This would be a good choice.
No, and that's why I feel with both the fruitful antioxidant extracts and the cruciferous vegetable extracts, it's an opportunity to know that at least the protective compound compounds that are present in those foods, you're at least getting them on a daily basis. Even better, if you supplement them with real food, eating those great things. Like Muriel, I used to hate Brussels sprouts. Muriel, and Brussels sprouts are a cruciferous vegetable. Muriel now makes the best Brussels sprouts. I forget which cookbook has her Brussels sprouts recipe.
I've seen it. It
might be in the Healthy Holiday Cookbook. But Brussels sprouts, if we're talking about a cruciferous vegetable extracts, those are among, many will say, the healthiest foods we could possibly eat. Many will say it's the rich purple, dark-colored berries. I actually think as healthy as those are, and by the way, there's no sugar, no calories in either of these products. So I might even opt for the cruciferous vegetables being the healthiest of all. And as you can see, this is the composition of our product. And it was a product that I wanted to make for decades, but I couldn't because there were no available sources. So we have our special broccoli sprout extract, a red cabbage extract that not only has glucosinolates in it, but it also is standardized for polyphenols and anthocyanins, the purple colors that you find in berries. Wow. Wasabi extract, standardized for the glucosinolates, Brussels sprout extract, kale extract, and each capsule has not less than 8,000 micrograms of glucosinolates, which is very, very high levels of glucosinolates. So again, most of us don't eat, we eat French fries, we eat all sorts of things. Most of us don't eat cruciferous vegetables on a daily basis. So this is a simple, straightforward way to get significant levels of glucosinolates. You'd have to eat a substantial amount of cruciferous vegetables to achieve those same levels.
Well, I'm sold, Andrew. That's one I'll take home today, cruciferous vegetables. Because a lot of us, I think, we're not eating enough of that, so that makes complete